The morning the HOA claimed I owed dues from 1971, I was standing in my father's old kitchen with sawdust on my sleeves and a letter that felt like a live wire. I'd just finished sanding the oak countertop he built with his brothers. Same knots. Same saw marks I traced as a kid. Dad used to say, "A house isn't wood and nails, it's a promise." The envelope was thick. Official. Assessment. Notice outstanding balance, said. A ledger as long as my arm. Dues. Late fees. Legal costs. Interest on top of interest, stacked all the way back to a year when my mother wore a ribbon in her hair and my father was laying fence in boots. 2 sizes too big. Pay in 30 days, it said. Failure may result in lien and foreclosure. I laughed. Then my stomach dropped. Foreclosure. On the farmhouse I'd just bought back from a distant cousin. On the porch where Dad carved our initials. On the bit of concrete by the back door where Mom pressed a lucky penny. I drove to the HOA office with pain on my knuckles, thinking it had to be a mistake. The place smelled like lemon cleaner and power. A woman behind glass carver treasurer looked at me like a banker staring at a bounced check. "It's simple," she said. "This property's been delinquent since our inception. Interest accrues. This house predates your neighborhood by half a century," I said. She tapped the paper. "Liens follow land, not people," her smile said they'd already. Measured me for the rope. The HOA didn't even exist in 1971. She shrugged. Administrative oversight? That phrase went through me like a nail through a boot. On the way home, every cedar post looked like a sentry. I parked under the live oak and walked to the flagpole. The halyard rope was cracked from years of neglect. My father's flag, folded since his funeral, waited in the top drawer like a quiet request. I raised it. The cloth snapped once and settled. Neighbors mowed. A dog barked. A plane droned high and far. Under all that, I heard the old world, apple butter on the stove. A pocket knife cutting twine. My father's voice, "Son, land remembers how you treat it." Inside. 3 orange violation notices clung to my front door like gum. Temporary dumpster, without permit. Exterior paint not approved. Front steps not conforming. I'd owned the place 19 days. Anger climbed my spine. This wasn't paint colors. This was a stranger walking into my kitchen, opening Dad's toolbox, telling me the hammer didn't belong. I called the number on the ledger. Carver answered. "I'm not paying a dime on imaginary debt." "Then expect consequences," she said. Somewhere behind her, a printer spit out my future. That night. In an empty living room with only a card table and a lamp, one spread out closing documents, county maps, and a yellowed photo of the farmhouse from 1971, Dad on the steps, Mom holding me, a hand-painted sign, "Welcome home." The ledger lay on top. Daring me through the open window, I heard the chain on the well clink, the sound it makes every night when the metal settles. It's the clock of this place, the shift from work to rest. I wasn't resting. "All right, Dad," I said to the quiet room. "If they want to fight, they picked the wrong porch." Outside, the flag stirred the first breath before a storm. 2 days later, I came home to a red sign wired to my steps. Stop work, HOA enforcement. The crew I'd hired to shore up the porch skirt stood there in hard hats, hands on hips. Carver's white SUV idled at the curb like a judge's gavel. She waved. "You can't do that," I said, pointing at the sign. "Clipboard, pen, that tidy smile. You're in violation. No approved plans, no color samples. Dumpster placement non-compliant. Historical back dues unresolved." "Historical?" said. "My folks were running cattle out here when this subdivision was a cow path." She looked past me at the house the way you look at an old dog that needs putting down. Progress requires order. On order, something bitter rose in my throat. Miguel, the crew boss, lifted his hard hat. "Can't work with that sign, sir." He was right. They'd get fined too. I sent the trucks home. Place felt abandoned in an instant. Fresh-cut pine should comfort a man. It didn't. I called the county building department. The inspector, polite, precise, pulled up my file. Your permits are in order, he said. An HOA can set aesthetics, but it can't stop permitted work. Not the timing change is a loose heat shield. Annoying, not fatal. Took notes. Then I drove to the recorder's office and pulled every file on our parcel from 1960 forward, the farmhouse. The well, the sheds, the split-rail fence. All recorded long before the HOA corporation existed, in 1998. I found a notation, annexation petition, not executed. Someone had tried to fold our land into their rules a generation after Dad built the porch. Someone else my father didn't sign. I photocopied until the machine coughed. At the door I ran into Earl from the bait shop, a man with a memory like a ledger. Your daddy told em no, he said, tapping the papers. Said a man doesn't vote away his own freedom. He smiled soft. When your mom got sick, women brought pies. Men fixed your well pump. We didn't need a committee and a fee to be neighbors. Good grief, hurts like that, sharp and warm at the same time. That night I went to the HOA board meeting, community room, folding chairs that squealed. Carver sat flanked by a president and a secretary, a triangle of certainty. When they opened the floor, I stood. I held up the ledger and the county records and told it plain. Voice low, like Dad taught me when bulls were spooked. You're billing me for dues before you existed. You're blocking permitted repairs on a house older than your bylaws. The president sighed. We have to enforce rules equally. Equal isn't the same as right, I said. A couple neighbors nodded. Guy in a golf shirt rolled his eyes. Carver gave me that lemon cleaner smile. Review, she said. But fines continue to accrue. On my way out, a woman touched my sleeve. My grandfather brought eggs to your mother when times were tight, she whispered. This isn't how it's supposed to be. Back home, the flag halyard tinked against the pole. I let anger burn clean, then made a list. County inspector's letter, title company opinion, state statute on HOA lien limits, survey to confirm boundaries, neighbor declarations. And if I had 2 daylight, I didn't want a stage. I wanted my porch back. But when someone tries to write history on your steps, sometimes you have to read it out loud to the whole town. I found the proof by accident, chasing a draft in the hallway. A loose kickboard popped. Behind it, a dusty shoebox tied with butcher's twine. My father's handwriting on the lid records. On the stairs, I opened it like a kid at Christmas. Receipts for cedar posts. Shingle invoices. A note from the church ladies, thanking Mom for pies. And at the bottom, a thin file, HOA, 1998. A letter from the association's first. President polite as a salesman. We'd love to have you join. Clipped to it was Dad's reply, respectfully decline. His full name in that bold hand his teachers loved. Attached a county map, shading the HOA boundary. Our parcel sat in white space, untouched. I drove to the title company. The agent skimmed, then read again careful. You were never legally annexed, she said. A petition is an ask, not a law. She typed a 1-page opinion that might as well have been a sword. We added certified copies of the 1998 map and Dad's letter. I slid it all into a binder thick enough to bruise. That afternoon, 2 more violations bloomed on my door like fungus. Unauthorized flagpole height and non-approved farm equipment on visible premises. The equipment was my father's red wheelbarrow with a sprung handle. The flagpole had been that height since Nixon. I took pictures. I filed a complaint with State Consumer Protection and got a case number that felt like a slingshot in a giant's pocket. I hired a surveyor. He found the original boundary pin under a tuft of blue stem 3 feet outside the HOA's painted post. He whistled. They've been mowing past your line for years. That evening I held a porch meeting. No mics, no podium. Just neighbors and mismatched chairs. Earl told how Dad lent his tractor to half the county without ever asking for gas money. A young couple said they were fined for their little girl's chalk drawing on the sidewalk. A widow admitted she'd paid late fees she didn't understand because the letter scared her coffee. Oatmeal cookies. Wind picking up. The flag cracked once like a gavel. We drafted a petition for a special meeting to review board actions. Billing and boundaries. We had the required signatures before the coffee went cold 2 days later. Certified letter landed like a brick. Cease and desist defamation. Pay outstanding balance to avoid lien. I read it, set it down, and for the first time in a week smiled. I faxed the title opinion, the 1998 map, permit confirmations, photos of the pins, and Dad's refusal. Then I emailed the local paper's community reporter. Family farmhouse faces foreclosure over dues from before HOA existed. Abers say enough. I didn't want spectacle. I wanted light. She came at sunset. Took a photo of me by the hand-planed rail. You can see the lines by my eyes and the flag's edge brushing the frame. The story went online at 10 p.m. by morning. My voicemail was full. Some ugly. Most kind. One from a retired judge. You're not the first. You won't be the last. Bring your papers. We met at a coffee shop. His pen clicked like a metronome. He read quietly, nodding each time the facts lined up like fence posts. You're standing on bedrock, he said. Stay polite. Stay public. When I got home, a fresh red placard hung on my steps. Immediate hearing scheduled. It looked like a threat. It felt like an invitation. The hearing drew a crowd big enough that my mother would have baked 2 more pies. The clubhouse lot overflowed. The board sat behind name placards like it was a bank luncheon. Carver looked tired the way certainty looks when it meets consequence. I carried my binder and Dad's wooden ruler, the one he'd slap into his palm before measure twice, rules of decorum. I nodded, then I asked to speak first. I'm not against neighbors, I said. I'm for them. I'm against paperwork pretending to be history. I laid it out like fence lines. The 1971 photograph. The annexation that wasn't in 1998. The permits. The boundary pins. I read the title company's letter. Handed copies to the board and their lawyer. The president started to interrupt. At the back, the retired judge lifted one finger. Let the record be complete. The room hummed. The reporter asked the question reporters are born to ask. If this parcel wasn't annexed, why send foreclosure threats? Silence. You could hear the AC breathe. Carver swallowed. It was long-standing practice. In the back row, Earl made a sound between a laugh and a cough. The widow squeezed my hand. The young couple's daughter held a purple marker sign. Let Mr. J fix his porch. We'll need time to review, the president said. The judge cleared his throat. You can suspend enforcement tonight, direct counsel to rescind improper notices, and order an independent audit. Or you can explain to a state investigator why you didn't. There's a special quiet when power realizes it isn't alone in the room. You feel it in your teeth. The board huddled. The lawyer chewed on his jaw. 5 minutes later, they returned, effective immediately. The president read, all fines and notices on this property are suspended pending review. County permitted work may proceed. The board will seek an independent audit of historical billing practices. Not an apology. Not yet. But a hinge swung open. Afterward, in a hallway lined with posters for pickleball and a chili cook-off, Carver stepped up. Voice lower now. For what it's worth, she said, I inherited a mess. I looked at her and saw someone who probably took the job to be useful and got swallowed by the machine. Then let's fix it, I said. We shook hands like neighbors. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. No legal basis for billing prior to annexation attempts in 1998. And no annexation occurred. All charges are void. We apologize. That morning, I rehung the porch lantern my father bought at a farm auction. Oiled the halyard, swept the steps until the boards looked like they do in the old photo. The crew came back and finished the skirt tight and true. Neighbors wandered over, some with pie, some with coffee, a few with apologies they didn't know. Earl slapped the rail. "Plum," he said. "The only blessing that mattered." At dusk, the lake beyond the cottonwoods turned to hammered copper. The wind eased. The flag went still. For the first time in years, so was I. Justice doesn't always sound like cheering. Sometimes it's the click of a latch, seating the last nail-driven flush, the sigh of a house settling back into itself. I ran my hand along the porch post and felt my father in the grain. This fight was never about paint or dues. It was about a promise. Land remembers how you paper can say a lot, but truth shows up where your boots stand. Have you ever faced an HOA like this? Share your story in the comments. I read every one. If you believe some fights are worth having, hit subscribe and let's stand up together.